Hey guys, welcome back to Envision Academy. In this video, I'll be sharing a story of Jane Volen, Johanna. The forest was dark and the snow-covered path was merely an impression left on Johanna's moccasined feet. If she had not come this way countless daylight times, Johanna would never have known where to go. But Heartwood was familiar to her, even in the unfamiliar night. She had often picnicked in the cool, shady copses and grubbed around the tall oak trees. In a hard winter like this one, a family could subsist for days on acorn stew. Still, this was the first night she had ever been out in the forest. Though she had lived by it all her life, it was tradition, no, more than that, that members of the Chevrel family did not venture into the midnight forest. Never, never go to the woods at night, her mother said, and it was not a warning as much as a command. Your father went through, he was told not to. He never returned. Johanna had obeyed. Her father's disappearance was still in her memory. Though she remembered nothing else of him, he was not the first of the Chevrels to go that way. There had been a great uncle and two girl cousins who had likewise never returned. At last, that was what Johanna had been told. Whether they had disappeared into the maw of the city that lurked over several mountains to the west, or into the hungry jaws of a wolf or bear, was never made clear. But Johanna, being an obedient girl, always came into the house with the setting sun. For 16 years, she had listened to that warning. But tonight, with her mother, pale and sightless, breathing brokenly in the bed they shared, Johanna had no choice. The doctor, who lived on the other side of the wood, must be faced. He lived in the cluster of houses that rimmed the far side of the Heartwood, a cluster that was known as the village. Though it was really much too small for such a name, the 5 houses of the Chevrel family that clutched together, now empty except for Johanna and her mother, were not called a village, though they squatted on as much land. Usually, the doctor himself came through the forest to visit the Chevrels. Once a year, he made the trip. Even when the grandparents and uncles and cousins had been alive, the village doctor came only once a year. He was gruff with them and called them strong as beasts, and went away, never even offering a tonic. They needed none. They were healthy. The long, cruel winter had sapped Johanna's mother's strength. She lay for days, silent, eyes clouded and unfocused, barely taking in the acorn gruel that Johanna spooned to her. And at last Johanna had said, "I will fetch the doctor." Her mother had grunted no each day until this evening. When Johanna mentioned the doctor again, there had been no answering voice. Without her mother's no, Johanna made her own mind. She would go. If she did not get through the woods and back with the doctor before dawn, she felt it would be too late. Deep inside, she knew she should have left before, even when her mother did not want her to go. And so she ran as quickly as she dared, following the small twisting path through Heartwood by feet. At first, Johanna's guilt and the unfamiliar night were a burden, making her feet heavier than usual. But as she continued running, the crisp night air seemed to clear her head. She felt unnaturally alert, as if she had suddenly begun to discover new senses. The wind molded her short dark hair to her head. For the first time she felt graceful and light, almost beautiful. Her feet beat a steady tattoo on the snow as they ran, and she felt neither cold nor winded. Her steps lengthened as she went. Suddenly, a broken branch across the path tangled in her legs. She went down heavily on all fours. Her breath caught in her throat. As she got to her feet, she searched the darkness ahead. Were there other branches waiting? Even as she started, the forest seemed to grow brighter. The light from the full moon must be finding its way into the heart of the woods. It was a comfortable thought. She ran faster now, confident of her steps. The trees seemed to rush by. There would be plenty of time. She came at last to the place where the wood stopped, and cautiously she ranged along the last trees, careful not to be silhouetted against the sky. Then she halted. She could hear nothing moving, could see nothing that threatened. When she was sure, she edged out onto the short meadow that ran in a downward curve to the back of the village. Once more she stopped. This time she turned her head to the left and right. She could smell the musk of the farm animals on the wind, blowing faintly up to her. The moon beat down upon her head and for a moment seemed to ride on her broad, dark shoulder. Slowly, she placed down the hill towards the line of houses that stood like teeth in a jagged row. Light streamed out of the rear windows, making threatening light little earthbound moons on the graying snow. She hesitated. A dog barked. Then a second began, only to end his call in a whine. A voice cried out from the house furthest on the right, a woman's voice, soft and soothing. Be quiet, boy. The dog was silent. She dared a few more slow steps toward the village, but her fear seemed to precede her. As if catching its scent, the first dog barked lastly again. Bow down. It was a man this time, shattering the night with authority. She recognized it at once. It was the doctor's voice. She edged towards its sound, shivering with relief and dread. She came to the backyard of the house on the right and waited. In her nervousness, she moved one foot restlessly, pawing the snow down to the dead grass. She wondered if her father, her great uncle, her cousins had felt this fear under the burning eye of the moon. The doctor, short and too stout for his age, came out of the back door, buttoning his breeches with one hand. In the other, he carried a gun. He peered out into the darkness. Who is there? She stepped forward into the yard, into the puddle of light. She tried to speak her name, but she suddenly could not recall it. She tried to tell why she had come, but nothing passed her closed throat. She shook her head to clear the fear away. The dog barked again, excited, furious. By gosh, the doctor said, it's a deer. She spun around and looked behind her, following his line of sight. There was nothing there. Thank you. Please do subscribe my channel and press the like button. Thank you.